Have you ever looked at someone who lies, manipulates, hurts people, and seems to get away with it all, and wondered whether justice is real? Have you ever watched a dishonest person rise higher while honest people struggle just to make it through another day? Maybe you've seen someone betray others to gain power. Maybe you've watched a person spread lies, destroy reputations, and still receive praise and success. And perhaps, in a quiet moment when nobody was listening, you've asked a question that many believers are afraid to say out loud. Why does God allow it? Why do wicked people seem to prosper while those who try to do what is right often suffer? At times, it can feel as if heaven is silent. It can seem as though evil is advancing unchecked while righteousness is left standing alone. But what if what you are seeing is only part of the story? What if God's silence is not indifference? What if His delay is not weakness? What if, behind the scenes, God is already preparing a reversal so powerful that no one will be able to deny His hand when it happens? Today, we are going to uncover one of the most dramatic stories of justice found anywhere in the Bible. It is a story of pride, power, hatred, and a shocking downfall. It is the story of a man who believed he was untouchable and another man who remained faithful when everything seemed stacked against him. And by the end of this story, you may never look at injustice the same way again. Before we begin, welcome to Bible Story Time. If you enjoy powerful Bible stories that reveal God's truth in a deeper way, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below, and hit the subscribe button. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring biblical stories with people around the world. Long before the events of this story unfolded, the Jewish people were living under the rule of the Persian Empire. It was a vast kingdom stretching across enormous territories. Kings ruled with immense authority. Their commands shaped the lives of millions. Wealth, influence, and political power determined who would rise and who would fall. Within this powerful empire lived a man named Haman. From every outward appearance, Haman seemed to have everything a person could want. He possessed wealth. He possessed influence. He possessed authority. He enjoyed the favor of the king. His position placed him above many of the other officials in the kingdom. People recognized him wherever he went. They respected him. They feared him. And whenever he entered a public place, people bowed before him. To many observers, Haman represented success. He appeared to be a man who had reached the very top. But appearances can be deceiving. Because behind the impressive title, behind the expensive garments, behind the public respect, there was something growing inside Haman's heart. Pride. Not ordinary pride. The kind of pride that slowly consumes a person's ability to see clearly. The kind of pride that convinces someone they deserve special treatment. The kind of pride that whispers that they are more important than everyone else. The higher Haman climbed, the more dangerous that pride became. And eventually, it would lead him toward destruction. At the same time, there was another man living in the kingdom. His name was Mordecai. Unlike Haman, Mordecai did not hold one of the highest positions in government. He was not famous. He was not celebrated throughout the empire. He was simply a faithful man. A man of conviction. A man who feared God. A man who refused to compromise his beliefs even when doing so would have made life easier. Mordecai understood something many people forget. Character matters most when nobody is watching. Integrity matters most when compromise seems profitable. Faithfulness matters most when obedience comes at a cost. One day, this faithfulness brought him into direct conflict with Haman. As Haman's influence increased, people throughout the kingdom were instructed to bow before him. Most people complied without hesitation. After all, refusing to honor a powerful official could be dangerous. But Mordecai refused. He would not bow. He would not surrender his convictions. He would not give a man the honor that belonged only to God. Day after day, while others lowered themselves before Haman, Mordecai remained standing. At first, this may have seemed like a small act. But for Haman, it became an obsession. Because pride cannot tolerate resistance. Pride demands recognition. Pride demands submission. Pride demands applause. And every time Haman saw Mordecai standing while others bowed, it felt like an attack on his ego. His irritation became anger. His anger became resentment. His resentment became hatred. Soon, Haman was no longer satisfied with punishing Mordecai. He wanted revenge. Complete revenge. The thought consumed him. The image of Mordecai refusing to bow replayed again and again in his mind. It poisoned his thoughts. It fueled his emotions. And eventually, it pushed him toward a decision that would change everything. Instead of targeting Mordecai alone, Haman decided to attack an entire people. He learned that Mordecai was Jewish. And rather than directing his anger at one man, he planned to destroy every Jewish person living within the empire. It was an act of breathtaking cruelty. An act fueled by arrogance and hatred. Yet Haman was confident. Why wouldn't he be? He possessed political influence. He enjoyed the king's trust. He believed he controlled the situation. With calculated precision, he approached the king. He presented his plan carefully. He manipulated the facts. He concealed his true motives. He portrayed an entire group of innocent people as a threat to the kingdom. And astonishingly, the king approved the decree. Just like that, a devastating order was issued. A date was set. The lives of countless innocent people were suddenly in danger. Across the empire, fear spread. Confusion spread. Sorrow spread. Families worried about the future. Parents feared for their children. Communities wondered what would happen next. And standing behind it all was Haman. Confident. Smug. Certain of victory. From his perspective, everything was working perfectly. His influence had secured the outcome he wanted. His enemies appeared powerless. His position seemed stronger than ever. But there was something Haman did not understand. He believed he was writing the final chapter. In reality, God had already begun writing a different ending. One of the most dangerous mistakes a person can make is assuming that temporary success equals permanent security. Many people fall into that trap. When their plans succeed, they believe they are invincible. When they avoid consequences, they believe consequences will never come. When they gain power, they imagine they control their future. Haman made exactly that mistake. Instead of showing humility, he became even more arrogant. Instead of being grateful, he became more demanding. Instead of using power responsibly, he abused it. And then he decided to take his hatred one step further. He ordered the construction of a massive gallows. Not a hidden execution site. Not something small or discreet. He wanted something visible. Something dramatic. Something impossible to ignore. The structure rose high into the sky, towering above the surrounding area. Its purpose was clear. Mordecai would be publicly executed, humiliated before everyone, made an example for the entire kingdom to see. As workers built the gallows, Haman likely imagined the satisfaction he would feel when his enemy was finally gone. He probably imagined the applause, the relief, the sense of triumph. Everything seemed to be moving according to his plan. But while Haman was busy building the instrument of destruction, God was quietly preparing a reversal. And that reversal began during a single night. A night that appeared ordinary. A night that seemed insignificant. A night when one man simply could not sleep. The king lay awake. Hour after hour passed. Rest would not come. Finally, he ordered servants to bring the royal records. The chronicles of important events within the kingdom. As they read those records aloud, something remarkable happened. The king discovered a forgotten act of loyalty. Years earlier, Mordecai had uncovered a plot against the throne. He had exposed a conspiracy that could have cost the king his life. Because of Mordecai's actions, disaster had been prevented. Yet somehow, Mordecai had never received a reward. The king was surprised. Such loyalty deserved recognition. Such service deserved honor. And before morning arrived, a decision had already begun forming in the king's mind. Meanwhile, completely unaware of these developments, Haman prepared for what he expected to be his greatest victory. He planned to visit the king. He planned to request permission to execute Mordecai. He expected an easy approval. After all, everything had gone his way so far. But the day ahead would not unfold as he imagined. It would become the beginning of one of the greatest reversals recorded in Scripture. And what happened next would leave Haman stunned, humiliated, and powerless. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with, "I'm still here." Let's see who is truly following this incredible story from beginning to end. As the sun rose over the Persian Empire, Haman entered the palace full of confidence. He had no idea that during the night, events had already shifted against him. He did not know that the king's perspective had changed. He did not know that God was moving behind the scenes. And sometimes that is exactly how divine justice works. The people involved cannot see it coming. The proud never expect it. The arrogant never prepare for it. But when God's timing arrives, everything can change in a single moment. And for Haman, that moment was about to arrive. Haman walked through the palace corridors with complete confidence. Every step seemed to confirm what he already believed about himself. He was powerful. He was respected. He was feared. Most importantly, he believed he was in control. The towering gallows he had ordered were already standing. His plan was in motion. By the end of the day, he expected Mordecai to be gone forever. As far as Haman was concerned, the story was over. But what he failed to understand was that God often works in ways no human being can predict. When people think they are writing the ending, God is often just beginning the most important chapter. Before Haman could even present his request, the king spoke first. "Haman," the king said, "what should be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?" For a brief moment, Haman's heart raced. Honor? Recognition? Public celebration? Who else could the king possibly be talking about? His pride immediately supplied the answer. Surely it must be me. Who else deserves such honor? Who else has served the king so faithfully? Who else holds such a high position in the kingdom? The possibility that the king might be referring to someone else never even entered his mind. That is one of the dangerous effects of pride. It blinds people. It convinces them that every opportunity is about them. Every compliment is for them. Every reward belongs to them. So Haman began describing the grandest honor he could imagine. He suggested royal robes that had been worn by the king himself. He suggested a royal horse. He suggested a public parade through the city streets. He suggested that a high-ranking official should lead the honored man through the city while proclaiming his greatness before everyone. As Haman spoke, he was secretly imagining himself wearing those robes. He imagined the crowds cheering. He imagined the admiration. He imagined the envy on the faces of others. In his mind, he was already experiencing the celebration. Then the king spoke words that shattered those dreams instantly. "Excellent," the king replied. "Take the robes and the horse, and do exactly as you have described for Mordecai the Jew." For a moment, time must have seemed to stop. Mordecai? The name hit Haman like a thunderbolt. Surely he had heard incorrectly. Surely the king meant someone else. But there was no mistake. The very man Haman hated. The very man he planned to execute. The very man he could not stand to look at. That was the man the king wanted honored. And not only honored. Haman himself would have to lead the celebration. Imagine the humiliation. Imagine the shock. Imagine the anger boiling inside him. Everything he had described for himself would now belong to Mordecai. The robes, the horse, the praise, the recognition, all of it. And Haman could do nothing about it. The king had spoken. The order was final. Reluctantly, Haman obeyed. He placed the royal robes on Mordecai. He prepared the royal horse. Then he led Mordecai through the streets. As crowds gathered, Haman was forced to announce the honor of the very man he despised. Can you imagine what people were thinking as they watched? Only days earlier, everyone knew Haman was one of the most powerful men in the empire. Yet here he was, publicly honoring Mordecai. The irony was impossible to miss. The humiliation was impossible to hide. Every word Haman spoke became another reminder that his plans were falling apart. Every step through the city became another crack in the image he had built for himself. And the worst part was that he still did not realize how much worse things were about to become. When the procession ended, Mordecai quietly returned to his duties. He did not boast. He did not mock Haman. He simply continued serving faithfully. That alone reveals an important difference between the two men. One was driven by pride. The other was guided by character. One demanded recognition. The other remained humble. One sought revenge. The other trusted God. As for Haman, he returned home devastated. For the first time, fear began creeping into his heart. Something felt different. Something felt wrong. The confidence he had carried for so long was beginning to disappear. Even his family sensed that events were moving in a dangerous direction. The same people who had encouraged his ambitions now expressed concern. They could see signs that his fortunes were changing. Yet before Haman had time to process everything, another summons arrived. The king and Queen Esther had arranged a banquet. Haman was invited. Normally, this would have been exciting news. An invitation from the queen herself was a tremendous honor. But on this day, Haman's mind was troubled. Still, he attended. Perhaps he hoped things would improve. Perhaps he believed he could recover from the embarrassment. Perhaps he still thought he could regain control. What happened at that banquet would prove how wrong he was. The guests gathered. The atmosphere appeared pleasant. Food was served. Conversations continued. Then the king turned toward Esther. "My queen," he said, "what is your request?" "It shall be granted." This was the moment Esther had been waiting for. Until now, she had remained silent about her identity as a Jew. Until now, she had concealed the threat hanging over her people. But now she spoke. With courage and wisdom, she revealed the truth. She explained that a decree had been issued against her people. She explained that innocent lives were at risk. She explained that someone had plotted their destruction. The king listened carefully. Then his expression changed. His concern turned to anger. "Who is responsible?" he demanded. "Who would dare do such a thing?" The answer came immediately. Esther pointed directly at Haman. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The room fell silent. In a single moment, everything changed. The truth was exposed. The hidden scheme was revealed. The lies could no longer remain hidden. And suddenly, Haman stood exposed before the king. Think about that moment. For so long, Haman had manipulated circumstances to his advantage. For so long, he had relied on influence and deception. For so long, he had believed he could control outcomes. Now none of those things could save him. The truth had finally come into the light. And when truth confronts deception, deception always loses. The king rose in fury. His anger was unmistakable. The man he had trusted had betrayed that trust. The official he had promoted had abused his position. The advisor he had relied upon had used his authority for evil. Meanwhile, Haman's confidence completely collapsed. The proud official who once seemed fearless suddenly became desperate. He pleaded. He begged. He searched for a way out. But the situation had changed. For years, Haman had shown no mercy to others. Now he desperately wanted mercy for himself. For years, he had ignored the suffering of innocent people. Now he was experiencing fear firsthand. For years, he had believed consequences belonged to other people. Now consequences had finally arrived at his own door. The king returned and saw the scene unfolding before him. His anger intensified. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no misunderstanding. There was no confusion. The verdict was clear. Then came one of the most astonishing moments in the entire story. One of the king's servants spoke up. He informed the king about the massive gallows standing outside. The same gallows Haman had prepared for Mordecai. The same structure built for an innocent man. The same instrument of destruction designed by pride and hatred. The king immediately understood the significance. "Hang him on it," he ordered. And just like that, Haman's fate was sealed. The very thing he had prepared for someone else became the instrument of his own downfall. The trap he built captured him. The weapon he created turned against him. The destruction he planned returned upon his own head. It is impossible to miss the lesson. God had not ignored what was happening. God had not forgotten Mordecai. God had not abandoned his people. While Haman believed he was succeeding, God was allowing events to unfold according to a greater plan. What appeared to be victory was actually the beginning of defeat. What appeared to be weakness was actually preparation for deliverance. What appeared to be silence was actually divine action taking place behind the scenes. This is one of the hardest truths for believers to remember when facing injustice. We want immediate answers. We want instant consequences. We want wrongs corrected right away. But God often works differently. Sometimes He allows situations to develop. Sometimes He allows pride to reveal itself fully. Sometimes He allows people to build the very traps that will eventually expose them. Not because He approves of evil. Not because He ignores suffering. But because His timing accomplishes something greater. When justice finally arrived for Haman, nobody could deny what had happened. The entire kingdom could see it. The reversal was unmistakable. The proud man fell. The faithful man was honored. The innocent were protected. The guilty were exposed. And the God who sees everything proved that He had been working all along. Yet the story carries another important lesson. Mordecai never knew exactly how God would intervene. While facing uncertainty, he simply remained faithful. He continued doing what was right. He continued trusting God. He continued standing firm. That faithfulness became part of the miracle. Many people give up too soon because they cannot see what God is doing. They become discouraged because justice seems delayed. They become tempted to compromise because wickedness appears successful. But the story of Mordecai reminds us that appearances can be deceiving. Just because something looks permanent does not mean it is. Just because evil appears strong does not mean it will prevail. Just because justice is delayed does not mean it has been denied. Often, God is working in ways we cannot yet see. And when His timing arrives, everything can change in a single day. For Haman, the day that began with dreams of victory ended in defeat. For Mordecai, the day that could have brought destruction became a day of honor. And for everyone watching, it became proof that God still rules over the affairs of men. The proud may rise for a season. The wicked may prosper for a time. But no amount of power can overturn God's justice. No amount of influence can hide the truth forever. And no amount of arrogance can protect a person from the consequences of their actions. The God who watched over Mordecai is the same God who watches over his people today. He sees every struggle. He sees every injustice. He sees every tear. And he has not forgotten. Before you leave, write this prayer in the comments: Lord, help me stay faithful while I wait for your justice. If this story encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to Bible Story Time for more powerful biblical stories that strengthen faith and reveal God's truth. Because no matter how things may look today, remember this: God always has the final word.